That's wrong. It's fine. We'll fix it in post. It's gonna be fine. Okay. All right. Hey everybody. How you doing? Welcome to the daily check-in. I'm Ned Belvance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and I'm monitoring my CPU usage. Ooh, it's getting kind of high there. I better close some things out. So what am I going to be talking about today? Good question. So what I'm going to be talking about today, once I close all my tabs and bring my CPU utilization down to normal levels. Yes, close all the tabs, please. Okay, now now we're getting somewhere with this. All right. Wow, I had a lot of tabs open. This is preposterous. I am building a new computer that's going to be specifically for streaming, so this should get a little bit easier. But I did want to bump up my bit rate because the video wasn't looking great. So anyway, hey everybody, this is Ned Belvance, Ned1313 on Twitter. This is the daily check-in. A couple quick things just to go over. First thing, if you haven't had a chance to check out anchor.fm/Ned-Bellavance, I now am doing this as a podcast in addition to the video version. So if you prefer just an audio format, you can go there. I'll put a link in the show notes and subscribe to the podcast. The podcast is also available through Spotify and through Google Podcasts. So both of those are now an option. So just, if you're interested in hearing the audio version, you can go to the anchor.fm website. Looks like I'm still, CPU is a little high. We are testing a new streaming level. So hopefully it's not too bad. All right. Wonder if I could drop down the stream. No, we're just going to keep going with it. Cool. So, what am I going to talk about today? Well, what I'm going to talk about today is a topic. I put out a poll for yesterday's daily check-in, and people selected managed Kubernetes, but another close runner-up to that was raising your hand. So, what I want to talk about today is raising your hand. If you have questions about the topic, drop them in the comments. I am monitoring that. You can also hit me up on Twitter, Ned1313, or in my DMs if you had some follow-up to this. But let's get into the topic at hand because I think I've rambled sufficiently today on unrelated topics. So raising your hand, what am I talking about here? The thing that I'm talking about here is volunteering to do something or not asking for permission to do something. There are multiple contexts in which you could raise your hand. There are open source projects out there. So if you wanted to try your hand at an open source project, you could do that just by raising your hand, looking at the existing issues or the roadmap for that open source project and going, hey, I can do that. I know how to program in, Python or Go or whatever, and I could tackle this module because I'm interested. Or you can help with the documentation or just, helping plan out features or logging new issues or responding to comments. Like there's a lot of ways you can help out with an open source project that are not necessarily programming, but do help the project as a whole. So that's one area in which you could raise your hand and say, hey, I want to help out with that. The next one is work projects. So, there's always new projects coming down the pike at work. And while your boss may not have you top of mind for specific projects or specific roles within a project, it's important that you stay aware of what those projects are coming down the pike and be available to raise your hand and go, no, I can do that. I'm interested in doing that. The third scenario would just be out in the community. And I don't necessarily mean the tech community. There's lots of things happening in your local community right now that you can raise your hand and help out with. It may not be obvious, but go to your township website or your borough website or whatever municipality you live in. Go to their website and see what they're asking for. Maybe they're asking for donations. Maybe they need someone to make face masks and you know how to sew. Like, there's lots of ways you can raise your hand and get involved. Why do you want to do this? There's a couple different reasons. One, do you want to grow as a person? Or at least I kind of hope you do. I mean, if you're watching this, I assume you want to grow as a person. By raising your hand and volunteering to do stuff, you may be expanding your existing skill set or just letting people know that you can do something they might not otherwise know about. I mean, you know yourself pretty well. You know the things that you're good at and the things that you're maybe not so good at. But your boss, your coworkers, your friends and community don't know that. They don't have a resume to review, and that resume is not constantly being updated with whatever new skill you've learned. If you don't make others aware of what you're capable of doing, they're not going to know that they can tap you when they do have that specific need. So raising your hand helps a lot there. Raising your hand also helps you advance in your career because it keeps you visible. It's not that bosses forget about you, it's that your manager may be managing 8 people, or in some cases, I've seen managers responsible for 30 people. You are not always going to be top of mind unless you're making noise. There's that old phrase like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, that's usually negative, right? The squeaky wheel is the one that is complaining. But you can also be the squeaky wheel in the sense that you're the one saying, hey, I can do that. Hey, I can help out. Don't forget about me. By staying top of mind when review time comes around, or you're looking for a raise, or you want to get promoted to that next level, your manager's not like, oh, well, what have you done? Like, you don't have to come in there selling yourself hard because your actions and raising your hand have sold you way better than whatever argument you were going to make in front of the desk. So that's also good for people who don't like to promote themselves as much. Now, your experience and their experience with you speaks for itself. It's going to just pave the way for you to advance in your career or even personally. Another thing that I want to say is when you raise your hand and do volunteer for something, especially if it's outside of your comfort zone, and it should be, you should volunteer for things that are outside of your comfort zone. You also need to be okay with failure because if you're doing something outside of your comfort zone, there's a high probability that you are going to fail at it. That's okay. Failure means learning. If you are successful at everything, then you never learn your limitations, or at least if you think you're successful at everything. Some people have, blinders on. So what I would say is try new things, raise your hand and volunteer for stuff that you're not entirely comfortable with. Ask for help. But know that you may fail. You're going to stumble. Things are going to be difficult. That's okay. It's all part of the learning process. It helps you grow as a person. And as you learn how to learn, it'll actually become less uncomfortable over time. I personally have 3 pillars. One of them is be nice. Another one is make yourself uncomfortable. And the third one is fail often. And those last 2 go hand in hand. Trying something uncomfortable means you're going to fail, and you have to be comfortable with that failure. The last thing I want to say about this is don't wait to be asked. Even if a project doesn't exist or no one has brought up a particular task, don't wait to be asked to do something. If you see a need out there, if you're looking at one of these open source projects, if you're looking at what's going on in your company and you see, oh, there's a need there that needs to be fulfilled, jump in there and do it. You don't have to always ask for permission. A good example of that is when I was at my previous consulting gig, I saw that we needed a marketing presence around podcasting because we didn't have one. And so I just started a podcast. I went over to the marketing team and I said, hey, I want to start a podcast. This is what I want to do. Will you support me? And they were like, yeah, thumbs up. Hey, thanks for stepping up and doing that. And that made me more visible within the company, but also, gave me more experience with podcasting, something I'd done a bit of, but now I had something that was work related that I could focus on as part of my daily work activities. Now, Caveats on that is one, you want to make sure that you're not duplicating existing efforts when you do decide to do something. So, the reason I checked in with the marketing group was to make sure they weren't already planning a podcast and had it in, the planning stages, because it would be silly for me to separately plan a podcast when they had already done some of the work for me. So, because they hadn't done that, it was now a collaborative effort and we worked on it together with me sort of leading the process. But if they already had a podcast in flight, I could have just jumped on that as opposed to building it up myself. So you do want to check in with those who are responsible. That's also true of open source projects. Open source projects generally have a roadmap and they also have a contributing guide. Consult the contributing guide and also consult the roadmap to make sure that the thing you want to do aligns with the larger goal of that project. And please don't go out and create your own project or fork that project and do your own thing if it's not adding true value. So you have to be cognizant of that. You also just want to check in when you're at the phase 0 before you've done a whole bunch of work on something. So you have the skeleton of a plan. It's not fully fleshed out, but you have enough to go to, say, the marketing department and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking at a very high level. So I've done some thinking about it. I have a plan, but I haven't actually started doing the hard work and the grinding of doing it, because you don't want to get so far down a path and then realize that it's not a viable thing to do and you have to cancel all that planning that you've already done. And that's not very valuable for you or the company or the project that you're working on. So with that in mind, you should go out and raise your hand and volunteer for things in whatever context makes sense for you. It's going to help you advance as a person. It's going to help you advance your career. It's going to grow your skill set. And honestly, once you get used to it, you're probably just going to be overall happier. So that's my thoughts for today. That's my daily check-in. Don't be afraid to raise your hand. And hey, raise your hand with me. Hit me up on Twitter, Ned1313. Let me know what you thought about this segment. Let me know other segments that you might want me to cover or things that I missed and screwed up. Let me know. I want to know about it. Until next time, stay healthy and stay safe. Thanks.